Okay. Okay, members, welcome to the 32nd meeting of the Public Accounts Committee in this mandate. Can I advise members that the committee meeting will be recorded and broadcast throughout Parliament buildings and online. However, there could be a slight delay moving between private and public sessions, so please be patient with our system. Can I also advise that those who will be joining us in the public gallery are welcome to use mobile devices as long as they're in airplane mode and that all devices are muted, and that they connect to the Assembly Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi password is available on the gallery rules, and it's not permitted to record or take photographs of these proceedings. We'll proceed as follows. Have we any apologies today? None from Patrick? No. Okay. Okay, members, can I refer you to the pack for a copy of the draft minutes of the meeting on the 6th of February at page 7 of the pack? If members would consider, can I have agreement those meetings are accurate?
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. Declaration of members' interest. Can I ask, is any member any relevant declaration of interest to declare for this meeting? Okay, thank you. And item 4, Barbara is not joining us this week. We're joining with Damien. So Damien's very welcome, and we're glad to see Lucia back with us as well. So thank you, Lucia, and thanks, Kirsten, for holding fort over the last few weeks. Matters arising, members, at page 15 of your pack is a letter received from Colin Boyle, the Accounting Officer of the Department of Communities, in response to our letter dated the 27th of January regarding the partial acceptance of recommendation 2 of the report into child poverty in Northern Ireland. As members know, this is subject of considerable discussion. Members will also recall that the MOR published on the 19th of December 2024 indicated that a written update on the development of the anti-poverty strategy would be provided by the Department for Communities by the 31st of January 25. To date, but probably not to anyone's surprise, it has not yet been received. And members, if you're content to note this correspondence and write to the Department seeking an update on the development of the anti-poverty strategy. All agreed?
Yep.
Okay.
Points, Chair.
Yes,
I'm just trying to get the correspondence up here. But yeah, there's the draft was supposed to already be March 25, yeah? Yeah. Will we see, one question is, will we see that? It's going to, I just can't get the letter up at the minute, there's something wrong with the system here. But my understanding has been sent for response, isn't that right? Will we get a chance to see that before it goes elsewhere, or?
That would be more for the communities.
We were given an assurance that the update would be provided, I think, to the department.
This committee?
Yeah. Well, by this date, wasn't that right?
At the end of January?
Yeah.
Yep. And it hasn't arrived yet?
It hasn't arrived, so like, another point then was, in relation to the recommendation, I'm just trying to get the, it still keeps referring to the executive issue as opposed to the communities being direct responsibility for setting targets, yeah? I mean,
Yes,
how
a bit of passing the buck going on as usual.
how do we resolve that matter? I mean, is it a case of, right, we've identified, if we assume we've identified the lead partner, which is, or the lead department's communities,
Yep.
and they have to collaborate with other departments in relation to gathering, information. They're saying, my reading of it, I'm just trying to get back again, but my reading of it was that they were saying, in terms of setting targets, it should be an executive issue. Is that right or wrong?
Yeah.
So what can we do in response to that?
I think we need to be very clear in spelling out to the department what their responsibilities are as the lead on this particular strategy. We all know this is a cross-cutting piece of legislation, a cross-cutting strategy that will impact on all departments, which it should, but that does not negate the fact that the Department for Communities is the lead, and they should be ensuring that that happens across the executive. I think that's probably where it's at. But from what I'm reading, they seem to think that once this is passed to the executive, then it's no longer their problem. And we need to seek some reassurance in relation to that they understand that if targets are not met, if it isn't across the executive, and if they're not following up as to why, they should be able to report back to us, because they're the people who will be holding to account. Is the Department for Communities in relation to this strategy. And if they're not able to report back to us, then we're wasting our time.
Well, they're saying the targets are up to the executive to come up with, not them.
Yeah, it's not them, that's my point.
They're
They're
saying the target
So
is
how-
the executive. Yeah.
So how do we tie that up? Because that's the fact they're not accepting the recommendation, partially accepting the recommendation. So my point is, if they're lead, how then we get them to ensure that they're, say, responsible for setting the targets, but collating the information across the departments? That's basically what I'm saying. How do we go about that? Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Either setting or agreeing. As lead department, they
Yeah,
surely
yeah.
must have some input into how they're going to be held to account for meeting those targets.
Yeah.
So that's my point, Chair.
So, is there a proposal here then in relation to how this is? Diane?
Thank you. So we had obviously gone back on this because this was the one that was partially accepted
Yeah.
rather than fully accepted
Yeah,
to
yeah.
ask for clarity. And I do feel that that has been clarified in the response as to why it is partial. The issue then is what we do with that. So the Permanent Secretary has come back and obviously said the reason why it's partial is because the MRR signed by the Minister of Communities and Minister of Finance emphasise it will be in the executive's decision as to whether to include targets. It's not that they've said we're partially accepting it because we don't think that there's targets. So it's this once again
Who sets the targets?
between civil service and the executive. So it's
How do
not
we
totally
address it?
clean cut. So
Yeah.
I don't really know what the best thing. For
That's
us
the
here
question I'm
is-
asking. How do we address it, Chair? Or can
I don't think that it's a case that the Permanent Secretary is saying he's not accepting it. I think he's pointing it back to ministerial level. So I
Oh,
don't really know
absolutely.
what the way forward is here.
100%, but the premise is that it's responsibility of communities.
Yes,
So
they are the lead department.
They're the lead, so it's up to them to put something in train that'll invite the rest. So how do we
As the lead department, if, they're saying the targets need to be set by the executive,
executive,
right?
yeah.
And that's going to be done, I suppose, depending on each department and how it's going to be implemented. But equally, they need to be overseeing that.
exactly?
So, they need to be the cog that hold the spokes together, and they need to be able to come into this committee and answer questions from us and others as to how these targets are being met, or if a particular department, for instance, is not doing what they said they would do in relation to the implementation of the strategy on their part. Instead of just saying, it's nothing to do with us,
Yeah.
it's a different department.
What they're saying is that it's up to the executive whether they even have a target. It's not about, so it's not they're saying the executive will set the target and we can implement it. They're saying, and the response to them, it's up to the executive whether there is a target or isn't. So that's there's a difference in, if there's no target at all, you can't hold them account. And what they're saying, it's not up to them to say whether there's a target or not.
The programme for government element of this, of the draft, was mentioned in it.
I don't know, I'd have to check.
Yeah. At executive level? I'm not sure. If we don't get clarification on this, we're just going to be around circles in relation to what's going to actually be achieved.
Absolutely, that's why
It's great having a fancy document, but if it's not going to be properly implemented, then
Not happen.
it'll not happen, as we have learned.
Yeah.
In the Diane?
Well, if we're looking to think of a proposal to go forward, if we've already sort of in principle agreed that we'll be writing to ask for an update on the anti-poverty strategy that was due in January, could we also in that ask, well, when do we expect that the ministers will decide whether they're including targets? Because we're keen to see responsibility for monitoring any targets allocated. Some sort of language like that. You could link the both together.
Yeah. I think we need to come up with formal words to seek clarification around this and nail it down properly, because if there's any ambiguity whatsoever,
What about what expectation will the Department of Communities as the lead department have in relation to targets from other departments? Something to that effect?
yes.
Something to
Lead
that
us.
And then that'll lead them to, yeah.
Yeah. Members happy with that?
Yeah.
That, Lucia?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, members. So we will respond then with a form of words that Lucia will draft and respond back to us.
Okay, so we could, I can bring a letter back next week if you want to have another
Yes.
look at it, just to make sure you're happy.
Yeah, sorry, just so in page 23 they talk about improving the well-being of children and young people, and they talk about a number of things that are, for example, they use the example of restorative practices, and that those will be key within that department. But that funding is continually being cut within that. So how will communities ensure that what is agreed is linking back to the expectations? How will they ensure that any cuts will not undermine the delivery of the strategy going forward? How are they going to monitor? How are they going to contribute to that decision making if we're not going to go back into silos?
Yes.
And the problems we identified in the other report.
I think it's a difficult time to make these recommendations because we've obviously assessed child poverty in a past strategy at a time whenever a new strategy is about to go live for consultation. So, you know, if you're too backward looking at, you know, talking about what happened in the past, we want to make the most meaningful recommendations going forward. So I just think it's a really difficult time to be.
We just don't want to repeat the mistakes
That's
of
it.
previously and
Let it drop through the cracks.
clear shortcomings and failings that deeply frustrated this committee and many across all of our constituencies. So it's...
Let the people who need it down, most of all.
Yeah.
That's the real key to it. That.
So, Lucia, do you want to summarise just what our action is then in relation to this?
Well, it's really, you know, I think you need to just seek further clarification around responsibilities and, you know, how they will then, you know, how the department will, you know, contribute to, you know, the decisions and implementation of those targets and also those targets across department. So,
Yeah.
How the departments will communicate with communities and how communities will assess and hold the departments to account.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, members, at pages 17 to 53 of your pack is correspondence from the Finance Committee on the request for an update from the Department of Finance on recommendation 9 of the PAC report into child poverty in Northern Ireland. At its meeting on the 5th of February, the Finance Committee agreed to receive a further briefing from the Department following departmental engagement with stakeholders and the development of an action plan. Are members content to note this correspondence, or has members any comments on that?
To declare
Yeah.
I sit in Finance Committee as well.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, members, at page 54 of your pack is a letter from...
Before you want,
Okay, Cal.
page 19, the correspondence.
Okay.
There's, my God, this thing's just cleaning up today. There's select, the Dallo letter, yeah. Just can't say it here, it's just, but it's the Dallo from DOF, yeah. DOF. And it states, a select group of stakeholders, the bottom paragraph. I just can't enforce my systems here, not. Could you bring that up? It's at page 19, yeah?
Yeah.
And the next paragraph, let's see, down one. The second bottom paragraph, it says, DOF officials intend to engage with departments and select stakeholders regarding their experiences involved in the Children's Services Cooperation Act. Can we find out who the select stakeholders are?
Yeah, we can see clarification.
Say clarification on that now? Yeah, you got that? Sorry.
Okay. Okay, all agreed, members?
Yep.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, and members are content with that proposal? Okay, thank you. Okay, members, at page 54 of your pack is a letter from the Patient and Client Council providing details of witnesses to attend the evidence session on access to GP services in Northern Ireland the 27th of February 2025. Are members content to note this correspondence? Okay. Agenda item 6 is fine. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 7. Members, the inquiry into public procurement in Northern Ireland, the memorandum of reply. We have said that we seek agreement, members, that we defer this MOR. Some of the recommendations cut across major capital projects, and as not to preempt the findings of this particular report, we should defer until this inquiry has concluded. As members agreed with that?
Great.
Could we seek an update potentially in a couple of weeks, because some of the targets within them are end of February, so you know, in the meantime, for those that are live in the recommendations, that we could seek that update in the meantime.
Members agreed? Okay, thank you, members. Okay, members, we will now move to closed session if members are agreed, and we'll move to the next item of our agenda, which is the inquiry into access to GP services.
Senate Chamber. Sound. Senate Chamber. Sound. Senate Chamber. Sound.